Hey Mel, welcome to the summit.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yes. So tell us a little bit more about you. What was your inspiration behind starting to work in women's health and with Temp Drop?
Yeah, so my story, probably similar to many women who discover fertility awareness, was it changed my life. Just discovering this knowledge, being able to get away from hormonal birth control, and see the importance of natural cycles, ovulation, really was something that was amazing to me, and it inspired me to want to help more women learn about this amazing, in-depth part of our bodies.
Mm.
And so, yeah, from there, just from learning it myself, it's developed into being able to help others, which is great.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah. And I find so many of us, that's how we started working in this field is because our own stories.
Yeah, for
So it's
sure.
amazing. Yeah. So the name of our summit is the Solving Infertility Summit. So what does that mean to you?
So personally, I'm not somebody who has, struggled with infertility or that trying to conceive journey, but I see so many women who do. Through my work with Temp Drop and as a fertility awareness educator, I just see these stories again and again. And as I talk to friends and acquaintances, it comes up, and it's so common now.
Mhm.
So, it really makes me feel for these women and couples. So, to be able to help in some way, just any little piece of knowledge that might help that journey, is just so important.
For sure, for sure. So let's talk about Temp Drop. What is Temp Drop?
Yeah, so Temp Drop, I have a little Temp Drop here. Temp
Yes.
Drop is made up of a wearable sensor and a fertility charting app all in one. And it's designed to be able for women to be able to wear overnight during their sleep and capture a sleeping temperature to be able to chart daily and follow their ovulation cycle. So traditionally, for women to be able to capture this sleeping temperature, or commonly known as a BBT, basal body temperature, a resting sleeping temperature, for them to be able to capture that every single day, they would need to wake at the same time, generally early in the morning before you kind of naturally wake, and pop an oral thermometer in your mouth for a couple of minutes, which is, it works for many women. But of course, being able to be consistent with that is very difficult. And there's also many factors that affect an oral BBT, a waking temperature. If you sleep with your mouth open, if you wake a little bit later or a little bit earlier, there's all sorts of things that can affect that temperature and cause its accuracy to be thrown off. So this is
Mhm.
where Temp Drop fills that need, the need to be able to capture a nightly sleeping temperature every single night over the course of your cycle. Just pop this on your arm overnight during sleep, and then wake up, sync it to your phone whenever you're ready, and your temperature will be there, ready to go to put in your chart.
I love that. And I find too with a lot of my clients, they love Temp Drop because BBT with the thermometer is so stressful. They're
It
like,
is.
I don't know if I'm doing it right and I missed a day and it's just a whole thing. So they're
Yeah,
like, thank goodness I can just wear this on my arm and it tracks everything for me. So I
yeah,
love that.
yeah.
Uh, and so that leads me into the next question, why a wearable? Why did you guys think that that was so important?
Yeah, just because, our lifestyles make it difficult to do things manually, especially like you mentioned, the stress. You don't want to add stress, especially during your trying to conceive journey, in any way, shape, or form. So if you're losing sleep over trying to capture this temperature, that's not going to help. So technology now allows us to be able to explore these other avenues. So our CEO and founder thought about using technology as a way to bridge that gap, and be able to use that, especially with the advance of charting apps. Now we don't back, before women would always have to put their temperatures on a paper chart. That was the only
Mhm.
option. But having charting apps on our phones makes that so much easier. So
Mhm.
using this technology of a wearable that bridges that gap and links straight to the charting app, just it adds a whole nother level of making this as stress-free as possible.
I love
Mhm.
that. And so, why is it important for us to track our BBT? Like, what can that tell us?
Yeah, so our body temperature is affected by ovulation, by the two primary hormones, estrogen and progesterone, which are produced throughout the cycle. And when we track that nightly BBT or nightly sleeping temperature, we can see the temperature change after ovulation. So once we ovulate, we produce progesterone, and progesterone raises our body temperature only slightly, but by capturing that nightly sleeping temperature, you can detect that rise after ovulation. So our temperatures follow the pattern of our cycle, and ovulation influences those temperatures. So by popping it on a chart, you can figure out if you're ovulating, when you're ovulating, and always know which phase of your cycle you're in, whether you're pre-ovulatory, post-ovulatory. It just gives you that information.
And I find tracking our cycles is so very important. I mean, it's really reading those body signs to tell us things about our overall health and about our fertility. So I find it so helpful and very important. Yeah.
Absolutely. Agree with that 100%, because it's more than just ovulating. This also can give you indications of how your hormone health is going in general. And that's an indication of what's going on inside in your endocrine system. So, you know, it's an insight into your whole body.
For sure. For sure. And how does this help our practitioners? Is this data that we can take to them and say, you know, maybe we're not ovulating, or maybe we're, you know, our luteal phase is off or something similar?
And how amazing is it to be able to have kind of an at-home way of monitoring this without, you know, blood tests and ultrasounds, that you can gather this data yourself, understand what's going on with your body, and then when you approach your practitioner, you've got that information to share. So you're not guessing, you're not stabbing in the dark, and neither are they. You'll be able to present before them that, yes, I do know I'm ovulating, but I ovulate late, or I have particularly long cycles, or I ovulate early, you know, before the generally accepted 14-day mark. So yeah, straight away you can have that information, or conversely you can say, look, I'm not ovulating. I'm experiencing bleeds, but they're not true menstrual periods, because they're not a bleed that's happening 2 weeks after ovulation. So you be able to gather this information for yourself and advocate for your healthcare and assist your practitioner to be able to target your treatment more succinctly.
For sure. For sure. And so is there anything that we need to know about Temp Drop, as far as, is there certain questions that you guys get and maybe somebody's using it wrong, or they're confused about something? Do we want to kind of go into a little bit of that?
Yeah, so probably one of the most important things when starting to use Temp Drop is, you know, just shooting through the guide, because there's just a few little things. Often there's this kind of learning period with Temp Drop where you're trying to get used to this new technology. One very important one is always remember to turn it on. It does need to be manually turned on. It doesn't automatically turn on. It will automatically shut down, but not turn on. And correct wearing position is also another big factor. Temp Drop needs to be worn on the upper inner arm over the axillary artery, just below the armpit, and adjust the band so that it's firm, because this needs to be firm overnight for the best readings, for optimal reading. So those couple of things, just to get used to the habit of turning it on, putting it on in the correct position, and just checking every few weeks to make sure that the firmness is still good to get the best readings you can get. Gotcha. But there's also a 14-day learning phase for Temp Drop for the sensor. This is about learning your environmental factors, your sleep patterns, so that the algorithm will have enough data then to be able to filter out variables. And this is where Temp Drop excels, is that it can filter out variables that would otherwise affect or skew your BBT. Things like poor sleep, maybe throwing the blankets on and off, changes in that environment temperature, even drinking alcohol. Many women may not realize that alcohol raises body temperature during the night, but Temp Drop will learn your normal patterns, and over time be able to filter that out to give you useful temperatures on the most days possible. But yeah, that first 14 days can just look a little bit up and down, a bit erratic, because the algorithm filtering is not working at that point. It's just gathering data. So, you know, make sure that you use it for at least, you know, that full month before you start drawing conclusions about its accuracy or how it's working for you.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And is there anything we need to know about the app? Is there a learning curve around that, around reading the data?
Yes. So the charting app that comes with Temp Drop, it does have some premium features where it can auto interpret your data for you if you wish. It's optional. You don't have to subscribe to that. You can use it in free mode as well. But if you're not confident about what you're seeing and you want that little bit of extra help, it's got the option to be able to interpret your data for you. Now, if you have irregular cycles, it won't be able to predict anything because we don't know with irregular cycles when you're going to ovulate. Nobody knows that. So the app won't have predictions for irregular cycles. It does for regular cycles because within, you know, we can generally estimate pretty well with regular cycles when your next ovulation might be. But it doesn't matter if your cycles are irregular or regular, it will still interpret your data. So once there is a temperature shift that meets the rules of the calculation set, then it will detect that and mark that. It'll also interpret your cervical mucus. If you're tracking your cervical mucus, which we really promote as an important sign to track, if you possibly can track it as well, because you'll get more information from that. And the app will also interpret that for you in the sense that it will be able to identify what's commonly known as peak cervical mucus day, which is the last day of fertile type cervical mucus in the cycle. And that peak day is a very good indicator of approximate ovulation as well. So, and another bonus that is just being released in the app, a new feature, is sleep data. So as well as tracking your cycle, you can now keep a check on your sleep quality, which also can impact that internal health and our hormone health.
That's amazing. I love that. I have so many clients talk to me about sleep and, you know, are they getting good quality sleep? And so that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a short break to hear a word from our sponsor, Temp Drop, and then we're going to come right back in and we're going to talk some practical tips on how we can get, you know, use Temp Drop the way it was made and how we can get really great results. So we'll be back. Hey, Mel, welcome back.
Thank you.
So let's talk practical tips. Do you have maybe 3 or 4 things that you would say, okay, these are things you need to start doing today to optimize your fertility and start to solve that infertility puzzle?
Yeah. Finding some good resources is, you know, so essential because to navigate this journey on our own, it's very difficult, but there are amazing resources out there, like the Puzzle podcast, for example. So, you know, digging in and finding resources is a number one thing. Like, learn as much as you possibly can about the cycle, how it should work, and then you'll be able to better understand the anomalies if you have them. If you have irregularities, you'll be able to understand them better. So knowledge, that's one of my number one tips. And straight away, you know, getting temperatures and cervical mucus, start to learn and track those. Cervical mucus can be a little more tricky, but it's totally possible to work out. It's just about being consistent in your observations and then learning what your normal patterns are. So that's something that you can start doing immediately. You decide, I'm going to start tracking. Start to learn your cervical mucus patterns. Again, find some resources. There's plenty out there online, or books you can read, or you can even reach out to a fertility awareness educator. There are many fertility awareness educators now that are accessible online, that many of them do remote classes, so it's not so difficult to find one. You don't have to find one locally. And as well as that, find a good charting app. I mean, we recommend Temp Drop, but yeah, find a good charting app, pop that on your phone, and at least, you know, get some basic information into that. You're starting with your last period date and then other fertility signs that you can start tracking on a day-to-day basis. And as well as tracking your fertility signs, it's also great to track lifestyle factors as well, and other symptoms about your overall health. So whether they be headaches or allergies, or when you do exercise, when you change something, especially when you change something dietary or start a supplement or start a medication, it's great to track all those things. And this is the good thing with fertility charting apps. They almost become like a little mini diary right there, and it's easy to pop them in. So by charting as many of those kind of symptoms as you can, you'll also start to make relationships between what is hormonal, what is cyclic, and what is not, and what is affecting your cycle, whether it's making you're seeing improvements or whether you're seeing things become worse. So charting multiple body symptoms, the way you feel, your overall health is a great way to go to be able to learn more about what's happening internally.
I love that. And can you go into cervical mucus a little bit? Like, what are we looking for? What is, what does it start out as, and how does it progress? And then kind of go through that a little bit.
Yeah, so generally, I mean, we'll speak in generalities of what we should see, but I mean, this isn't the same for every woman, obviously. Everyone's unique, individual, but generally, after your period, after you have your period, for the first couple of days after your period, you may not notice any cervical mucus, and that's good, because at that point, estrogen is low. Cervical mucus is influenced by primarily estrogen. And estrogen should steadily rise starting from the time after your period leading up to ovulation. And as that rises in those days of the follicular phase leading up to ovulation, you hopefully will see an increase in cervical mucus, and it changes in consistency. So it can change from first looking or feeling kind of sticky or tacky, a little bit like glue, to then becoming more watery in its content. So it's sort of changed through to a creamy, lotiony kind of consistency. And then hopefully we'll get to the point where it resembles raw egg whites, which is what we term as peak type mucus, or highly fertile type mucus. Now that might only happen for a couple of days before ovulation, maybe even one day before ovulation. You might just detect that change to an egg white type consistency, raw egg whites, where it's clear, it's stretchy, it's slippery. Hopefully there's a few more days there, and then after ovulation, it abruptly changes back down to a lower fertility type again. So it might abruptly change from one day to the next, and now you'll notice it's back to perhaps sticky, or maybe none at all. So it does this change throughout the cycle under the influence of estrogen, where it becomes more fertile in its consistency, and hopefully you'll get more quantity as well. And then you'll see an abrupt change as progesterone takes over as the dominant hormone. The cervical mucus will dry up. So looking for that abrupt change back to a lesser fertility quality again. And then that will remain that way generally throughout the rest of the cycle until your next period. Though many women do notice a change again just before their next period, when the progesterone levels are dropping again, they might see a little bit of cervical mucus again, whether it be creamy or egg white. That's quite normal. But yeah, you're looking for this progressive change throughout the cycle.
And I noticed too, and I'm sure you can agree, but most people sometimes, well, not most people, some people will say, I don't see it at all. But then when they start to look for it, then they're like, oh, that's what that is. Okay. Yeah. So it's definitely about learning your body and charting, all these fertile signs that you see.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Talk to us about any pieces of advice you have, maybe for somebody that's just starting this journey, or maybe somebody that's been on it for years. What would you say to them?
Yeah, so for just starting out, like, the best advice is just to jump in and start. I mean, you can read so much, you can take in knowledge, but until you actually start the practice of it, which is like most things when we're learning, it can be confusing, or you might feel a bit overwhelmed. But it's not that difficult. It just becomes part of your daily habits once you form them, and you become so in tune with your body that it just becomes second nature after a time. So just start, like, just choose a charting app, start putting symptoms in there, grab a resource or reach out to a fertility awareness educator, and start thinking about what your body is doing day to day. for those who've been doing it a long time, if you haven't tried Temp Drop yet, that's my biggest recommendation. I mean, sure, if oral temping's working for you, you know, you might think, oh, I don't need this new technology. It's not important. But honestly, it just makes things so much easier. If you want a more stress-free way of tracking consistently, Temp Drop is the way to go. I mean, I know for myself, I had oral temp before Temp Drop was available. I had no problem with oral temping because I have a very consistent sleep pattern. And I kind of just got this device out of curiosity when it launched. And yeah, I could never go back. It's just so much easier. It's so much easier to keep it going. But yeah, so if you're a long-term charter and haven't yet tried Temp Drop, grab one to try. I definitely recommend that.
For sure. For sure. And where can we find Temp Drop? Where can we find more information about you guys, and where can we get one?
Yeah, so our website, tempdrop.com, definitely the go-to. You can buy it online there. In the US, it's also available on Amazon. But as well as that, we're on all the social media. We've got Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So all of those places you can find us and find more information.
So anything you want to leave us with, maybe a favorite quote or any final words?
Any final words? Look, honestly, whenever I talk to women about fertility awareness, my words are just try it. Try tracking your cycles for a period of 2 to 3 months, and you'll be amazed at what you learn. So just do it. That's my words. Give it a go, because it can surprise you. And like myself, it might just change your life.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Mel, for being here. I really enjoyed our talk. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
And thank you, ladies, for listening. Until our next talk. Bye.